Alrighty, might as well look at getting started. Okay, my name's Stuart. I work at the University of Technology, Sydney. I've worked there for about 9 years. I have been working with the Atlassian suite for approximately 2 or 3 years now. In that time, thank you, Dee. In that time, I've obviously gone through and done a lot of installations of the Atlassian suite. Outside of my UTS work, I've worked with every single one of the products: Stash, Bamboo, Crowd, Fisheye, Jira, and Confluence. And I do a lot of those for my own open source development work. So towards the end of last year, I had a bit of a thought in that a lot of the time that we have to upgrade the Atlassian suite behind the firewall is spent in doing a lot of manual customizations of the files. Things like custom contexts, things like custom Java memory parameters, things like these that every time you upgrade the suite, you have to do these manually. So what I've done is I've looked at seeing what we could do to actually automate this process. So the goals that I set out with were to install, upgrade and uninstall each of the applications in the suite, including Bamboo, Confluence, Crowd, Fisheye, Jira and Stash, provide a standardized means of deploying and upgrading each application in the suite, and provide an abstraction layer to manage the large number of application settings that previously had to be configured manually. This allowed us to decrease the likelihood of human error by eliminating these manual configuration tasks, speed up the application upgrades, and also look at minimizing the documentation that you needed to do by taking out these manual tasks. Aiming to support Red Hat and CentOS and Ubuntu and Debian systems, that's what we're looking at, or I'm looking at doing initially. The script's been mostly written in Perl, therefore should be pretty portable across different architectured systems. And most of all, I'm curious to see, does anyone find themselves skipping upgrades, skipping 1 or 2 versions to skip over the manual configuration tasks and finding yourself just going, look, I can't keep updating these applications month in, month out. It's so I see a few heads nodding, so it's good to know that I'm not alone. So the current progress, I've spent over 100 dev hours on this, putting this script together. Currently it does do installations, upgrades and uninstalls of all the suite products, manages the custom ports and context configurations, manages the custom Java parameters at runtimes, those things that you have to add for things like SSL trust stores that previously you had to enter into the configuration files each time you upgraded. Custom Java memory parameters such as XMS, XMX and permagen values if you need higher than the stock memory configurations. It now gathers the majority of existing configurations for those of you that already have installations. So obviously I didn't want everyone to have to enter their configurations into the script manually. Ideally it will go and actually pull the majority of the config out of your existing files. For those of you that use MySQL, if there is anyone, I know I use it on my personal systems because I run a very small installation. It'll now download the MySQL JDBC connector for you on demand and copy those into the Tomcat lib directories. And it also manages the creation of init scripts and system service management. So what's left to do? The next steps are developing management of Crowd properties files and Seraph configs for Crowd single sign-on. For those of you that use Crowd as a single sign-on module, you'll know that the moment you upgrade one of the applications, you have to go and create the crowd.properties file again manually, and then you actually have to edit the Seraph config to re-enable your single sign-on. And the second task is to develop management of proxy directives for Tomcat where required to support connections that are proxied from Apache. So there are a few minor settings that you have to put into your Tomcat configuration to ensure that it plays nicely with an Apache front end. And that's those are the 2 large final steps to do. Ideally, I'd like to look at a way to stop binary installers from creating users such as Jira 1, Jira 2, Jira 3. I know that's happened to a lot of people and a lot of people have raised with me, so that's something that I'll be looking at to see if there's a way we can programmatically get around it. Improve the wrapper shell script, to which basically the program comes in 2 parts, a wrapper shell script and the Perl script. Improving the wrapper script to actually do a lot of the installation of Perl modules that are required for the Perl script to run. Next, I've got to do extensive testing and bug fixes. Also, I'm going to be developing expect scripts and Selenium tests to automate the testing process for the ASM script. A few people have raised with me the concept of automation, thinking with Puppet, the ability to auto-deploy and auto-upgrade and not have to be consistently doing this manually, and that's something that I will be keeping in mind. I have kept in mind for the initial stages of development of the script, however that will be released closer to phase 2. The ability to add custom hooks. Obviously, being a Perl script, it is great for you guys to be able to extend even further, to do the even further custom things that you need as part of your installations, and that's something that I'm keeping in mind as well. And finally, one of the other things that I'm possibly looking at is fully managing the integration with Apache using mod proxy, and actually managing the HTTPD configuration files to add the proxy directives. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a bit of a demo as to exactly what we can do with it. So what we're going to do is have a quick look. What I've got here is a Confluence install. You can see that I'm currently running on a custom port, I'm running on a custom context, and we're running an older version at version 4.2.13. So previously, in order to do an upgrade, we'd have to go through a large array of different configuration tasks. But what we wanted to do is make this easier. So what we do is we just run the Atlassian Suite Manager script. This will boot up and we'll say what would we like to do. It gives us a basic menu. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an upgrade. We're going to upgrade Confluence. So select 2 to upgrade Confluence. Gives us the ability to quickly review the configuration. I'll just quickly take you through that. So this takes you through the the installation directories, data directories, the context that you would like to configure the application with, the port that it will run on. As we're currently running Confluence on this system already, it will warn us that the port's already in use. However, we can choose to say, yes, we're well aware of this, I choose to override and not configure a separate port. Same thing for the server port. So we can enter additional parameters as mentioned. Your SSL trust store certificate options would go in this configuration parameter here, and the script will automatically apply this to your install. So we enter the minimum amount of memory we'd like to allocate to Confluence, the maximum amount of memory, and the permagen memory, which generally you shouldn't need to change, but sometimes support lets us know that we need to. It asks us if we want to run it as a service, so it will actually manage the installation of the system service for you, manages the creation of the init scripts, so you don't have to worry about these sort of things. It'll ask you if you want to upgrade to the latest version, so we'll say yes. So what actually is happening here is we're going to Atlassian, we're checking what the latest version is. Now, to save time now, I've actually already pre-downloaded this, and the script will check the directory to say we've already downloaded the file, do you want to skip downloading? So we'll say, yep, we don't need to download again. What we've done in the background, you can see that the binary installer is now kicked off. What we've done is we've generated a custom kickstart file, which we've passed into the binary installer, and basically said, I want to give you these default options, kick off the upgrade in the background. Now this will take a few minutes. After we've done this, what will actually happen is we will then stop the Confluence service from running so that we can apply the additional custom parameters that we need. These are the things like your custom context, your memory parameters. Confluence does bring over some things, but not all with the binary installer. So this is why we needed I felt there was a need for the ability to do all these configuration items in one hit. While this is happening in the background, I'll also say that another thing one of my colleagues has raised with me, Scott, was the need to be able to generate a configuration and then apply this on multiple servers. So what we can do is in the background, the script will actually generate a settings.config file. This config file can be taken to any of your other servers with the same version of the Atlassian Suite Manager script. You can run the install and know you will get what you installed on one, installed on the other. There's no more worries about finding that you've tried to install Confluence and you've forgotten a setting, or something's been missed, or you've got a different config to what you had on this environment. Longer term, I'd like to look at doing things such as disaster recovery, automation for those type tasks, because something I did ask of a few people at the community last time was how many people actually have a disaster recovery plan for their Atlassian instance. Out of curiosity, can I just have a quick show of hands how many people actually have a tried and tested disaster recovery plan for their Atlassian instance?
We've got tried and tested.
So that's certainly something that I'd like to be looking at as well, because it's something we all have to deal with, and it's often forgotten. And the one day where you go, you know, I've lost my Atlassian, I've lost my Confluence install, is something we'd like to try and avoid. So you can see just in the background here that we're currently extracting the files. It's done the backup of the directory, and now it's launching Confluence. So this will launch in the background, and then, as mentioned, we'll stop the process and continue from there. Just while we're waiting for that, does anyone have any questions thus far, ideas, suggestions, etc.? Yes?
So you're not from Atlassian, right?
No, I'm...
Why do you think that Atlassian hasn't done this yet?
I was actually chatting to one of the guys. I'll just repeat the question. The question was, why do you think Atlassian hasn't done this as of yet? The reason, obviously, Atlassian has on-demand. On-demand is the product offering for the quick get it installed and minimize the management required. I have been informed that they are looking at working on the user experience, but as far they haven't worked towards a universal installer or a universal configuration. I'm not sure as to the reason behind that, but as I mentioned, I saw a bit of a need, and one of the things that I've learned from Atlassian, and I saw and I see in the Atlassian guys as well, is one of their mottos: "Be the change you seek." And I saw a need, and I sort of went, "This is something I'm running into," and I was curious to see if the community would be interested in and saw the same need. So it's something that I thought, it's something that I can try, and perhaps even to the point where Atlassian goes, yes, there is a need, and starts working towards something. If that's the trigger, then I think that's a step forward as it is.
Well, just personally, I think it's a big thing it's one of the big reasons people maybe go to on-demand because of the forward configuration.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons I went to on-demand is just pretty much a small project.
Yeah.
But really, I would like to just do my own hosting. So I think this would be great.
That's good to know. It's something that, as mentioned, it's definitely something that I have a small installation myself. I actually started with the 10 user license, and that's where I know a lot of people start, and that's the difficult part, especially where you need to get project manager buy-in, that you need to actually get funding for the application. And often the on-demand is more expensive, and I know in some organizations, not all, there is a resistance to moving towards the cloud. And so the great thing about Atlassian is they do offer these $10 licenses, and you can say, well, come on guys, it's only going to cost $150 for the whole suite, just let us buy it and see how it goes, and it ends up taking off. And the other idea behind this is providing those users the ability to very quickly do an installation without having to know about all these custom configurations and quirks that exist. Bamboo, I don't know if there's any Bamboo users here, but that has been an absolute nightmare to program. That was about 25 hours in itself, because there's just so many tiny configuration changes that are so different to the rest of the suite.
Sure.
Yes?
Yeah. We have unlimited enterprise licenses.
Yes.
Across the board, Atlassians.
Yep.
We are so freaked out by upgrades.
Yes.
Pay someone else to do it.
Yep.
Typically, an upgrade costs us $5,000 or $6,000 in external fees.
Yep.
We do it in a staging area.
Yes.
We check it out
Yep.
over a week or so,
Mhm.
and then we deploy it.
Yep.
Our regular areas. So it is a long, painful, and expensive process
Yeah.
for us. Therefore, how often do we do it? Once or twice a year now.
Yeah.
So product like that for us.
That's great to hear. It's definitely something that I'm glad to hear that, because I went on this adventure not knowing, and I had sort of spoken to a few people who'd said, oh yeah, we'd like to see that. I was actually showing it to Dee earlier, and she was quite surprised. I'll quickly jump back into it and show you actually just how easy it is to finish, and then I'll come back to that. So do we want to delete the downloaded installer? No. What it'll actually do is go through, and we can see here that it's configured MySQL. It's given me the JDBC connector. One of the other things I did hear from a couple of users that they sometimes need to use a custom JDBC connector for Oracle or one of the other databases. I can, now that I know about that, I can very easily add the questions and configuration items in to handle that, and so I will be doing that before the final release. So all you'll need to do is download it once, and the installer will handle copying that into each install as part of your upgrades. Yes?
Retrieving the JDBCs or the files from Atlassian, such like that, is there an option to put in a proxy and proxy settings?
Okay, the question was retrieving all the files and settings from Atlassian and JDBC, etc. Is there an ability to put in proxy settings at this stage? No, we're just using Perl's standard get tools. I will take that on board. Is that something that the community would like the ability to configure that as part of the options of the suite?
If you don't have that ability,
Yep.
do you have the ability to point to install files that are local?
In theory, well, yes. Have I documented the process entirely? No. So what you will have actually seen here is I've actually said, do I want to download the installer again? No. So in that case, yes. And with a manual configuration option for the JDBC driver, yes, you could achieve that. I will definitely take that on board and make sure that for the final documentation and release notes that there is a documented process for that. Yes. Up the back.
Does this handle version gap?
At this stage, the question was, does it handle version gap? At this stage, yes. I've done an upgrade, and actually I'm just upgrading what I'm showing you here from 4.2 to 4.37, so jumping quite a few versions. Have I tried major version gaps? I have done with Stash, and it's worked beautifully. The idea of the script is that it will, your data generally stays in your data directory, so really all we need to do is configure the application settings to handle what's in your data directory. So generally speaking, I would hope that yes, it is resilient across major upgrades, and especially jumping several versions.
Especially because when you upgrade from major versions, let's say if you have Confluence 2,
Yep.
and then if you want to jump to Confluence 4,
Yep.
then Atlassian recommends that you can jump as not recommended.
Okay.
Atlassian recommends that from 2 you go to maybe 2.4, then you go to 3, then you go to 2.5, and then you go to 4.
Okay.
So that's what Atlassian recommends. So if I were to use the script to upgrade from 2 to 4,
Yep.
so would the script take the same approach, or would it just straight away jump to 4?
At this stage, it'll jump straight. I wasn't aware of that, so that is great to know. The question more, the additional information. Just to let everyone know, I'm screen recording because a few people have requested it, so that's why I'm repeating everything. The thing was, Atlassian sometimes recommends that if you're doing major version jumps, that you actually jump between specific versions before going. At this stage, no, the script doesn't handle that. I'll definitely take that on board and look into that as a more robust solution.
I don't know for a fact, but it could well be that the Atlassian installers will stop you and
Yep.
say this isn't a recommended upgrade.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll definitely have a look and look into that. I hadn't tried from anything sort of version 2. It may be that this script, I will admit I haven't tried from version 2 of Confluence. I may cut support at starting at 3 because I know things have changed a lot in the configurations, and I'd probably have to spend another 100 dev hours trying to configure to learn about Confluence 2.
After what it's worth, we've ignored that recommendation without
Okay. Okay. So we've got a few people that have.
Is 2 more minutes okay, or do you need more time?
If I can have more time, that'd be awesome.
5?
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. So I've just started up the Confluence service in the background. The upgrade's been completed. So I'm not actually going to hit enter yet, but you will notice down the bottom we're running 4213. In a moment, in about 60 seconds, hopefully, it will start back up again and we will be running a new version. So the idea behind this, and obviously this has been a bit of talking in between, but the idea is that you can do this very, very quickly. I've been running this, there we go. I've been running this on my production system, that is my personal production system, for the last couple of upgrades to work out the kinks and bugs. And so far it's been so good. I'm getting there, and here we have Confluence 4.3. So you can see that the overall time spent actually sitting there at a command line doing work to do the upgrade was very minimal. Now, the idea behind it, and this is something where I wanted to get a bit of feedback from you as users, what are your backup process? Because obviously currently I force backups as part of the script. I won't actually let things run if you don't back things up. But is this something you'd like to circumvent? So when we're doing an upgrade, currently I copy the directories so that we have a backed up copy. Is this something that you'd prefer to circumvent? Is this something that you would happily like, you must do a backup of this directory before we're allowed to proceed?
So does your script handle the rollback?
At this stage, no. Definitely for phase 2, I would like to be looking at rollbacks. The issue with that is the need for a database rollback also. So while the script could definitely handle your data directory and your installation directory rollbacks, the database rollback would have to be manual on the side of your DBAs or yourself. How many people out there use Postgre and MySQL, either of those two? So there's a few there. Because obviously with those, I don't have to install massive client drivers. I could just do dumps, which then I could possibly look at doing. Is that something you'd like, or is it certain? With Oracle, it's a different story entirely because you have to have very, all the Oracle drivers installed. But certainly for Postgre and MySQL, I could look at doing a database dump and then rolling that back by just pushing that back into the database.
So for a corporate environment, that is ISO process management, which is always a case of, we're going to do something,
Yep.
we need to roll that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely, I can take that on board and look at doing some sort of rollback process. So I'll just quickly jump back. I was hoping to do a couple more upgrades while we were here, but unfortunately, doesn't look like I'll get time to. So I'll just quickly jump back into PowerPoint. And just say where to from here. So the script is about 1.5 months away from the alpha beta stage. I'm doing it all in my personal time. It's been done entirely on weekends, train trips to work, those sort of things. So I'm about 1.5 months away. I am looking for people who'd be interested in getting their hands dirty with an alpha or beta version, having a bit of a look at the functionality, having a bit of a play with it in your environment or in a virtualized environment, certainly not on your production environment just yet. But that can give me some feedback on the features, what's happening behind the scenes, and provide input on what you'd like to see in it. The final script will be 100% open source for the community. I'm definitely an open book. As I said, the more input I get, the more I can tailor the script to the needs of the group. I'd certainly like it to be something that that grows over the next 12 months or so to become a very robust solution to make this process very easy. I'd just quickly like to say thanks go out to Atlassian for providing me the open source licenses, to the entire Atlassian suite for my open source development work, and that I've been able to actually do these sort of development projects on. And a big thanks goes out to turnkeyinternet.net, who is my web host in the United States, who gives me 3 servers for free a month that I can play with all my development projects on and actually do this sort of development work. So if you need hosting and stuff, I can put in a good word for you there. And they're a great bunch of guys. So if you need to contact me, those are my contact details there. If you want to come and see me, I've got some cards with links on the back to the ASM script, so you can go away and have a bit of a look. Please feel free to drop me an email. Anyone that wants to have a bit of a play, find out what it's about. I'm happy to release a bleeding edge version if you're really keen, and you can have a bit of a play, and by all means give me some feedback. So that's it. Do I have any questions? Yes. Oh.
Can you install this just on a vanilla Linux server? Just get your script, run it on a vanilla, don't have anything else, and it'll just install Atlassian?
At this stage, not quite. That is what I need to do with the wrapper script. Currently, there are some Perl modules that need to be installed, and there are a minimum set of binaries that need to be installed: wget, tar, gzip, and unzip. So I would like to look at doing enhancing that script before the final release to do as much of that configuration as possible. Unfortunately, with some Perl installations, it can sometimes be a little quirky getting the Perl modules installed. I've documented all those sort of things and given a very detailed step-by-step instruction on the wiki page on how to get those initial steps set up. At this stage, haven't fully tested on Ubuntu. I have got the provisions in there, and it should in theory work. There may be 1 or 2 bugs that I have to play around with, but certainly Red Hat's been the development system that I've been working on, but before the final release it will be Ubuntu, Debian, Red Hat, CentOS.
Lobby,
do you log all the changes you make?
Yes, I do. There's two sort of things. Currently, I use Log4j, and I currently recommend it stays in debug mode. Debug mode basically dumps everything, which means, especially for the early testers, I can see exactly what parameters are going around in the script. I can see what changes are being made and those sort of things. Also, any file we touch and make changes to is immediately backed up. It's backed up to the file name underscore a date and timestamp. So it means that each time it's had changes made, you've got a backed up copy there, so that if something does go critically wrong, you can go back to that.
I noticed that you set up the service, stuff like that, indicates that you're running it as root.
Yes.
Is there options to run it as non-root?
At this stage, no. That is definitely something that I would like to work on, because I'm acutely aware we don't have root access at work. There's two schools of thought to that. One is the script should be easy enough that you can give it to your server admin and say run this with step 1, 3 and 5. But also I would like to look at providing the ability to do it as a non-root. The Atlassian binary installers can be a little quirky with that. I was chatting to one of the guys today and basically asked them the question, is the binary installer the way forward? Am I going to lose the tar GZ? And they said for the enterprise they're pretty much always going to have to keep the tar GZ, which means before the final version I may actually move away from the binary installers, because they've got their own inherent problems, such as the Jira 1, 2, 3 users. They can't be run as, or they can be run as non-root. I'm getting told that I've got no more time. So please come and see me. I'll stay up here, and as I said, I'll put some business cards up the front, which have the URL on the back. Please let me know, get in contact with me. The more people I have to do some early testing, the better. So thank you very much.